Good morning, Charlie Wall here. It's been a long time since I've done one of these Facebook Lives on my page. So I just wanted to say welcome and thank you for watching or listening if you are doing either. And my apologies for being away for such a long time. It feels like I've had so much going on in my world that I've kind of concentrated on doing it in my own private Facebook group. So I just wanted to explain a little bit there whilst I share in my Facebook group this video. So one of the things I wanted to talk about today is I've sort of been called to, I just was sitting there thinking, how can I explain what I'm doing? How can I explain what I've done? How can I explain to people what's changed my world, what's changed my life, what's changed my thought systems? And, you know, like for me, it looks like it comes from a space of mental health. And I know that I spent many years believing I was broken. I would go to different forms of counselling or therapy myself, and that message was reinforced. There's something wrong with you. There's something wrong with your thinking. We need to change your thinking. And also, I trained as a mental health nurse, and you know, like within that training, I knew an awful lot about mental illness. And no one really spoke to me about mental health. And so what I want to just talk to you about today is how it looks to me now and how it's changed the way that I go through my life. And another thing is that I just want to thank all the men that are watching and listening, because I just had no idea that I was even reaching men or that men would even resonate with my message. So I'm kind of opening this page up now to men and women, because it's become apparent to me that what I talk about actually isn't gender specific. So it seems like there's quite a lot of men out there who also suffer with anxiety, who also suffer with any sort of form of habit, and also body dysmorphia, and experiencing those critical, dominant thoughts about not being good enough or looking good enough. And I just want to thank, you know, those men that have reached out to me and say that they watch it. So that's amazing and something that I just never even considered, which is brilliant, really, that message is somehow resonating with you. And so, yeah, let's talk about, you know, mental health, what that means. And to me, it looks like we all have mental health. We all have a resilience and a strength, and an inner knowing that we're being guided, that we're okay, and that's always there. And the reason I know that is because, firstly, I've seen that in myself, the courage and the resilience, which I've spoken about on previous videos, but I see it all the time in my clients. I see that resilience and I see that knowledge and I see that wisdom within them when they speak to me, as they go through their life. And what occurs to me is that they just don't see it in themselves, and they don't believe it about themselves. So they don't believe that it's possible for them to live either habit-free, you know, whether that be binge eating or anxiety or alcohol, gambling. They just don't see that that's possible. And they believe that their experience of themselves is real and true. So they believe the stories that go through their mind about them being broken, about there being something wrong with them. And depression's another one. You know, you might go to the doctors and you might have these feelings of anxiety and depression, and you're essentially given a tablet to kind of manage that episode, and maybe 6 free counselling sessions on the GP service. I know I had that. I didn't. I think I maybe took the antidepressants for I reckon about 3 weeks. They made me feel really, really weird, and so I came off them. But I had the kind of obligatory 6 sessions, and often in those sessions, and this is no fault of the people who were counselling me or the people that were in CBT or psychotherapy. This is what is called in the conversation that I'm involved in. It's part of, they call it the old paradigm. So it's looking at changing thoughts and behaviours, but without actually going into the root of going upstream and looking at someone's well-being and resilience. And it's also alluding to the fact that things in the past can still affect you today in this moment. So for a long time, for me, I suffered with quite severe post-traumatic stress symptoms. And that includes, I think everyone has their own unique experience of what PTSD is for them. So for me, it was as a result of my brother and my dad's accident, and identifying my brother's body, and then going through the sort of process post that trauma, and then what my dad went through for certainly for that first year and a half after the accident. And so as my life was kind of evolving, and I developed and I trained to be a psychiatric nurse and then an addictions counsellor, I would still experience those flashbacks, those memories sometimes, but not all the time. But as I spoke about in the last video that you may have seen, which should be just below, what I had was a high level actually, low level, who am I kidding? It was a high level state of anxiety at all times. And I tried to control that by keeping things around me safe and structured. And then that would come out sideways because I'd get drunk and be a complete loon. And either you'd find me in the corner crying, or I'd be really angry, or there would be some other risky behavior. But as a rule, I tried to control everything around me. And then when my dad died in 2016, the symptoms of post-traumatic stress came back, or so I thought. So the memories of my brother, the 5 weeks of my dad being in hospital, I ended up in hospital, and to me, that induced the chronic PTSD again. So I'd been in hospital with my dad for 5 weeks. That had been, very traumatic, very difficult. I didn't believe in myself and my resilience, even though evidentially that in my life I can see it objectively, but at that time I just couldn't see it. And so I went into the hospital and I believed I was experiencing what I knew to be post-traumatic stress and subsequent panic attacks, anxiety. So for me at that point, it looked like I couldn't spend any time with anyone. I couldn't really talk to anyone. I didn't socialize. I couldn't have any noise. I couldn't read. I couldn't watch the TV. I had chronic nightmares. I couldn't sleep. And I totally believe that, oh God, here we go again, that every time I experienced the flashback, that I was almost beholden to this diagnosis of post-traumatic stress. I had no idea that those memories and those flashbacks I was experiencing in the moment, but that had happened in the past. And so it didn't really have any power over it anymore, because the past is gone. And I was recreating it in the moment, in this moment now. And if I'd have been maybe even shown a little glimpse of that at 21, that's gone, it's in the past. The past doesn't have any power over you at all unless you give those thoughts power, unless you bring them into this moment. And of course, then, like I might have had a different experience of mental wellness, mental health, instead of labeling myself mentally unwell with this diagnosis of complex post-traumatic stress disorder. And so I think when we get that label, we kind of walk around with this label and don't really ever think that there's wellness there. We just think, this is my lot, I'm going to accept it, I'm going to manage it as best I can with these tools and strategies that I'm given by these well-meaning professionals, and I'll just sort of crack on and keep putting one foot in front of the other. And I would go to my counselling and I'd talk about this grief, and I'd talk about the trauma, and I'd talk about my erratic behaviour and ridiculousness, which I see now as ridiculousness, but I think at the time I was doing the best that I could with the thinking that I had in that moment. But I was really critical of myself back then, and now I'm not. So, but the counsellor that I saw again was doing the best that he could with the thinking that he has with his training. And after every counselling session, I would be like exhausted and like miserable and tearful, and everyone was like, "Oh, it gets worse before it gets better." And I loved my counsellor very much, and I'm still in contact with him, and it was a big help to me. I thought he'd saved my life, but actually I'd saved my life, and I attributed it to him. But it didn't make me better. It didn't give me like the long-lasting peace and well-being that I wanted. It essentially papered over a crack that I thought was getting bigger. And so I stumbled into this conversation, this understanding, what's being called the new paradigm, where we understand how our experience is created moment to moment to moment. And when you see that, and you see through the illusion of your own thoughts, and you see how your thoughts are created, then underneath that you can see well-being and mental health. Underneath all that buzz of critical thoughts and labels and all of that, you can see light and love and clarity and peace of mind. And I have a mentor, he's called, and a coach, Jamie Smart, and he uses this amazing analogy, which I love, and I'll just tell you the teddy bear analogy. And so when I was little, I had a teddy bear that I loved dearly. And I believed, and I watched this play out in my son, absolutely, that the teddy bear was giving me the feelings of peace and well-being and love that I wanted to get to sleep. And as adults, we collude with that. Yes, it's the teddy bear giving you the feelings of love and security. And we don't, innocently, say to the child, no, this is coming from you. You can create these feelings of well-being and security and love from within you. It's not the teddy bear. I mean, obviously you wouldn't say to a child, the teddy bear is just stuffing, but we know that it's not coming from the teddy bear as adults. The child doesn't know that. And that's where I think we should be telling the child, this is coming from you. You have the power within you at all times to create that feeling of well-being and safety, because it's who you are. It's always been who you are. It will always be who you are, and not those thoughts that tell you otherwise. Now, as adults, we grow up and we just replace the teddy bear. So it becomes about a career. It becomes about a relationship. It becomes about money. It becomes about the house. It becomes about the children. It becomes about all of these things outside of us, which we innocently believe will give us happiness, safety, love, security. And of course, most of us, we get those things. You know, I've had a great career. I've had money. I was earning lots of money in my old career. Well, this is my third or fourth career. You know, again, essentially, like I've kept moving. I've had the great car. You know, I've had the amazing holidays. I've been married. And none of it ever gave me that sustaining feeling of happiness. There's always, I got it. I felt happy. I felt proud. And then I would just kind of, you know, retreat back and have that sort of same low level, I need the next thing. So the next qualification, the next relationship, the next, I was always sort of looking, there's something missing, and I'd get the thing, whatever I thought it was that was missing, and then, no, that's not it. I need the next thing and the next thing. All we're doing, all of us, is innocently looking for something outside of us and not understanding that at any moment we have that power to create the happiness. Because when I had the amazing holiday, when I got the amazing car, I felt happy and proud. But those feelings were coming from within me in that moment. They weren't coming from the car or the holiday or the success, what I'd attributed as success. They were coming from within me 100% of the time. And that includes sadness, low mood, anger, annoyance, irritability, which I also, you know, the sadness, it's because my brother died, because my dad's disabled. Anger, my ex-husband, it's his fault. It's their fault. It's that person's fault. That person's annoying me, so I'm angry. No, that's all coming from within you in the moment in response to what you're thinking and experiencing. That's all that's ever happening. And that's why when we understand how our experience is created moment to moment, you can see through the illusion of your thoughts that are taking form in the moment. Thoughts are just energy. They're just coming through you, in and out, in and out. We attach to some of them and we let go of others. And then we feel our experience of those thoughts. When we understand that, when we get to grips with that, when we see through that, you are aware that you already had this inner resilience, innate well-being, mental health. You've always had it. And it leads to more clarity and thus less looking outside of yourself for peace of mind. And by looking outside of yourself, in this case, I mean those of us that look outside of ourselves. So we'll automatically go for a drink. We'll automatically go for the cake. we'll automatically go for a really, really fast drive on a motorbike or in a car. We might go gambling. We might have a porn, a drive to look at porn. We might have a drive to hoard. We might have a drive to spend money. And all of that stuff is just us innocently reinforcing the fact that our feelings are a result of things and circumstances outside of us. And what I want to share with you is that that's just not the truth. It's not the truth. And who you are underneath all of that, underneath those thoughts, is so much more than you think. It's so much more than that. And that's what gets us out of this continual loop, really, of what people call self-sabotage, imposter syndrome, addictive behavior. Nothing ever works for me. I am unlucky. All this kind of, these beliefs that we carry around. So from my own experience, I just happened to stumble across this understanding. I felt very, very lucky that happened to me. And I have begun to, like, I went to an event on Friday, a coaching event on Friday, and it was the first time I had gone to the event. I hadn't got any nervous thinking about it beforehand. I went in, I said hello to people, and I wasn't shy. I didn't hide in the corner. I spoke up. I listened. I wasn't in my own mind racked with anxiety and thoughts about not being good enough and don't look at me, don't speak to me, don't put me on the spot. That utter fear that I was creating about a future event prior to the event. And I was believing, for years and years, I was believing that that future event had the power to make me feel anxious beforehand. And that's what I did. I spent, if I knew there was an event coming up, I would really get in my head. I'd be really worried about the event. And by the time I got to the event, I'd often have some sort of panic attack. I remember once going to London with my good friend. I was meeting my good friend Amber, and we were going to a Jenny Burrell event in London. And I was meeting Amber there, and I got on the train, and I was getting worse. I was getting more and more anxious on the train. And I got onto the underground. This was before my dad died, probably about 4 or 5 years ago this was. And I literally got on the underground and had this panic attack. And I didn't know what to do. And I just sort of ran out, and I think I went and got a packet of facts or something, and just said, I think I messaged Amber and Jenny and said, I can't do, something's happened, I've got to go back. And I just got the train straight home again. And if I'd known just in those moments that I was innocently believing that the future event had any power over me, my life would have just been so much easier, so much less stressful. And there was another occasion where, this is quite funny, but it's not, it is and it isn't. I went to a Bulgarian bag training in London. And again, I'd worked myself up into a tizzy about this training day. And I've never told the people of this who ran it. But anyway, I got there, and I was heightened heightened awareness, heightened anxiety. And I walked in, and the woman that was running it said, "So you've got to do a Bulgarian bag test." And I just panicked. I literally had this sort of panic attack. I could feel it coming on, and I ran to leave the venue, and I couldn't open the door. I couldn't open the gate of the unit. And I was there, like, trying to get out of this unit, and I couldn't get out. I couldn't get out. And by this point, my panic had gone into this kind of attack, and the nearest thing to me was their toilet, and I just ran into the toilet and had to kind of bring myself down. And because of the panic and anxiety was so strong, I couldn't work out how to open the door. And so in my mind, I was trapped. And so all I had to do was spend like 5-10 minutes calming down as much as I could, and then walk back in. And I thought, I daren't ask them if I can leave. And in the end, I had a great day, but it was the sheer terror that I innocently put myself in. And there's many more situations like that I could talk about, that I could tell you about. But it was only the other day that I even realised I was doing this. I didn't realise I had this chronic anxiety. I just didn't realise. I thought I just had post-traumatic stress. I didn't realise that I was living in this constant state of stress and trauma, what I was doing to myself, until about 3 weeks ago. Well, I kind of knew over the last year, I would say I knew I was anxious, but I didn't know I was doing it to myself. And then all of a sudden, I just had this realization, and I saw through the illusion. And my life, I haven't felt stress in the last 2-3 weeks, because I know that I was creating it in my own mind. So those are just a few examples, but the reason I wanted to come in and talk about this was because I want to sort of point you more to in my work, on my page, in my group, to what I'm teaching and what I'm talking about, and how it's changed my world, and how, if you're open to seeing something different, something within a new paradigm, then please keep listening, please keep watching. I can't tell you how much you have already got going for you. And actually, don't listen to me anyway, because the only person that will ever see what you've got going for you is you, and that will be through your own insight and your own realizations. But that's what I want you to know today, is that you are already absolutely enough. There is nothing that can hurt you. We can be hurt physically, and life does happen, and I know that as well as the next person. Most of you know what's gone on in my life, but nothing can actually hurt you. Our thoughts can, but we give them much more power than they deserve, because they're just energy going through us. And what you have is infinite wisdom within you. And if you can just see through those illusions, those thoughts, the sort of critical voice, and see them for what they are, which is just not the truth, you'll clear your mind for clarity and wisdom and courage and confidence and all the stuff that is yours by birthright and that is already there, but for your thinking that it isn't, and that there's something wrong with you. So I hope this has made sense a little bit, and I'd love to talk to you about this subject. I could talk about it all day, because I just keep continuing to learn as I go along, and the impact it's had on my life has just been nothing but extraordinary. So thank you for listening. Hope to see you on the next video or podcast. And you are enough. That's what I want to say. And I'll talk to you soon. And if you have any questions, please just write them below or message me. You can email me at Charli Wall, that's with an I, CHARLI, Wall, at I am Charli with an E, wall.com. Or you can come into my Facebook group, ladies only. There's a Facebook group for women. But anyway, I'll talk to you soon. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. Take care.